Hello and welcome everyone to another fun-filled episode of Fangirlz Assemble. I'm Fariha, joining me all the way from Kentucky, Maddie. How are you, Maddie?
Hi, doing good. How you doing?
Doing great. So today is a very special episode because, as you can see, we have a guest with us. It's Brandon Montclare. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right.
Those of you who don't know or have known it, probably everyone knows, but Brandon is the writer for Moon Girl and the Devil Dinosaur, as well as Rocket Girl and a whole bunch of different other awesome books that are out there. He was also an editor for DC for quite some time, so this is a very exciting because the first time ever we have someone who was an editor and currently a writer.
Yeah, I really liked editing also, so I'm happy to talk about that as well. It's been a while, but I worked on a lot of great books, so I was very lucky.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of sad that Kristan won't be able to join us today, but you actually edited one of her favorite books.
I'm gonna guess what it is because I'm a fan of Fangirlz Assemble. Is it Sweet Tooth? It's always on the
Yes.
Yeah, she is gonna be just. I have a lot of good Sweet Tooth stories. I was all ready to share them, but
well, you can still share it with us. She will be watching, so we can shame her for not joining. No.
Yeah. So I don't know if you guys read it or if she read it, but before he did Sweet Tooth at Vertigo, we did an original graphic novel called The Nobody.
Okay.
It was kind of like an Invisible Man thing. It was a guy all wrapped in bandages. So yeah, so I was the editor on that with Bob Schreck. And Vertigo was changing a lot at that time. So also Matt Kint and those guys, I think, became friends at DC Vertigo when they were both working. Matt Kint was working on a book called Revolver. And Schreck and Schreck was the boss. I was just the assistant. We brought that book in. And then with Sweet Tooth, it was a really goofy book and everyone kind of liked it. And kind of one of the books that's surprising that it took off and did everyone. But everyone loved it so much. And all we got was the cover that everybody knows. It was a kind of a rougher version of it, of the kid with the antlers eating the chocolate bar. But yeah, and then I left. So it was like Schreck and then me and Shrek, and then just me, and then just Porn Sex. So that book had a lot of editors, but we can get to that later. I don't mean to interrupt your intro. So I'm already ruining.
No, you're good.
No, you're completely fine. This is exactly like as if you're a fan of our show, so this is exactly how all our shows go. We start somewhere and then we end somewhere different.
Right.
All right.
Can we thank for bringing this week's episode?
Oh, damn, you're good. Well, we can thank our sponsor, In Stock Trades. So, as many of our viewers know, as I will repeat again and again, my praises of In Stock Trades. But if you spend over $50, you get free shipping in the United States, and all the books are up to 50% off, including, DC, Boom, Marvel, all of them, everything you could ever want.
And then all the books that we're going to be talking about today, especially Moon Girls and Devil Dinosaurs, all of them, all the trades are currently available there for up to 42% off. I think this week, by today, today's the last day, if you add the code Avenge the Fallen, because there's apparently some movie coming out over in a couple of weeks. I don't know if you know about
it.
Yeah, so if you do Avenge the Fallen code, you get additional 3% off. So go get all the books that we're going to be talking about. Well, after the show,
and quick announcement too. So while Game of Thrones season 8 is going, Fangirlz Assemble will be slightly earlier at 7:30, so that we have enough time to go watch Game of Thrones
right after this.
Yeah, I've never seen Game of Thrones, so I don't, and I'm not against it or anything. I never started. Now it's like I need to find a lot of time to get into it.
Well, at least now it's going to be done, so you can just jump in and.
That's what I did with Breaking Bad. It was all done, so I didn't have to wait so much.
Well, I think I can see Lunella, she growing up and becoming Olenna Tyrell. There's one character of her.
Yeah.
Like that, I can see she becoming growing up and say, I don't have time for this foolishness. So there is a character like that. So from that point of view, I think you're gonna dig it once you get into it. So talk about Game of Thrones, which we'll be talking about once it's done at some future episode. But Brandon, let's get us going. So tell us a little bit about your comic book origin story. How did you start it in this media?
Yeah, I always spend way too long talking about this because it's been a long time. But it's like almost everybody, it's changing. But certainly when I got into the business, everyone in the business has been a fan their whole life. So I was obviously a collector of books as a little kid, buying stuff. There were comic shops around. They were hard to get to, and you're a little kid. I lived in the suburbs of New York, so most of the stuff was still like newsstand and toy stores and stuff like that to get comics. But by the time I was, excuse me, after it was between the summer between 7th and 8th grade, I started working at conventions, buying and selling issues here in the city in New York, where I live now. And my father always lived in the city. So yeah, I've been, how old are you between 7th and 8th grade? 12 years old, something like that. So ever since then, I've been working on comics. But I did that. I had a comic book shop that I bought into when I was 19 up in Scarsdale, Alternate Realities. It closed a few years ago. So I was always very proud because it had lasted for years and years. I had sold a long time ago to my partner. But it was going out of business. This was kind of like the crash of Valiant and Image and all that stuff. So at 19, I bought into a comic shop, and it was really cool to own a comic shop at 19. I personally didn't think it was cool about 24, 25. So I moved out to California. I was going back to school. I worked at Tokyo Pop, which which did all translations of manga. Probably most people know it. But at the same time, they wanted to start making their own properties. And a lot of the people who worked at Tokyo Pop, not all of them, but most of them kind of came from like books and magazines. They didn't have any idea how to actually make comics. They were like very more experienced just like translating this stuff. So with Tokyo Pop, I was an intern, then I was on staff there. But because they wanted to create new stuff in the manga style, I got to assume a lot of authority. And then going around just meeting conventions, moving back to New York, I interviewed at Marvel and DC. I wound up taking a job at DC, working for Bob Schreck, which was a little bit on Batman, and then all kinds of special projects, which was like Batman stuff like Batman Year 100 and All-Star Batman, also All-Star Superman. Then we moved up to Vertigo, worked on Sweet Tooth, worked on Hellblazer, worked on Day Tripper, a lot of stuff that I'm sure I'm forgetting. But then left DC and started working for mostly Marvel. Image also did a book and doing more stuff, and that pretty much catches us up. That was the. I tried to keep it short. I don't know if that's.
No, that's good. That's good. I didn't know for Tokyo Pop. That's really cool.
Yeah,
that's like a big part of my even growing up. Really, is Tokyo Pop.
Yeah, and Tokyo Pop was kind of notorious. But when you're some dope and you're in your 20s as the intern, it's not really your fault. All the kind of notorious things that they were doing, like they had a lot of young creators. A lot of people criticized the deal, and rightly so. But the people there were really great. All the editors, all the people. I had a lot of good friends to this day that I met there, and a lot of good talent. Amy Reeder, through Tokyo Pop, so I met her. Felipe Smith, who's been working on a creator-owned project for a long time, but was doing Ghost Rider, the Robbie Reyes Ghost Rider, writing it for a while. Did a lot of stuff. So a lot of good people from there. Becky Cloonan, I never worked with her at Tokyo Pop, but she was there. Sophie Campbell, a lot of people.
So it seems like you have worked from everywhere, every stages of a comic book industry, like owning a comic book shop, to editor, to writer. Like, so this is like, so we have a lot of questions now. I wish I knew about this comic book owning business. I would have some questions about that. So, like, what is, like, so we hear a lot of things about editors, like mostly often in a negative connotation of like editorial interference in comic books. So tell us, for those of us who don't know, what is the responsibility of a comic book editor?
It's especially at Marvel and DC. It's really, it's a little bit of everything, kind of like, but it's mostly talent management. It's mostly getting the right people on the book, and then a little bit of brand management. So when I was working in Batman, you had to make sure, that no one was doing anything too goofy, or that would get, the higher ups even looking at this stuff. But it's basically you decide who to hire, you know what I mean? And I think I was lucky. Some people are really into it, but I didn't work on a lot of DCU event stuff and that kind of thing. I did, like I said, it was a lot of special projects, and I worked for Bob Schreck, so they're kind of standalone. Even when you worked with Batman and Superman, it wasn't like the monthly book, let alone the 4 monthly books in the entire office of stuff. So there were some crossovers early on. I did worked on some of that, but mostly it was writers and artists who got to kind of do their own thing and produce a lot of great books that way. But it's still the same job. The job is, like I said, hiring the right people and doing it. As a young person, as an editor, it might have been even cooler to work more on just like what's the latest relaunch of Avengers or something like that, because you would be working with a lot of artists and you'd be working with a lot of writers and kind of coordinating all that. I worked with Frank Miller and Grant Morrison and Frank Whiteley and Matt Wagner and Paul Pope and all the best of the best, which was really great, and I'm so thankful for it. But you really just, when you work with those people, you're not telling them how to draw better or fix something or there's a big plot hole. I mean, All-Star Superman, it was only 12 issues, but I think we won 3 Eisners because it took so long to come out. Yeah, I mean, I've said this before. It's a joke. I can only remember one edit that we ever gave, which was so silly. Superman gets locked in a closet. He does it. He's off on the Bizarre World, and someone's like, Clark Kent, we thought you were dead. And he goes, oh, I got locked in the closet with the collected works of Shakespeare and a Christmas hamper. I didn't even know what it was. And I kind of thought he meant like a basket, like a gift basket. And that's what he meant. So he changed hamper to basket. And that's the only edit I ever remember giving on that entire book. So, I mean, you can't really take credit for it, although you play the hand you're dealt. But it was keeping everybody cool. It took a long time for that book to come out. There was a lot of personalities that you had to kind of manage. And all great guys, and it was all guys working on that book. But still getting it, like getting people paid, getting people, like making sure you're checking in on them and they're feeling motivated to work and stuff like that. It was a lot of stuff like that. And I really liked it. But it's talking to artists and working with them and trying to get the best out of them. Common wisdom is your job really starts before anyone ever picks up a pencil, right? Because you're supposed to pick the right people. But yeah, I got to work with all kinds. So now I'm a writer. I get to maybe work on 2 or 3 projects. So I'm working with a couple of artists, maybe an alternate artist, a colorist, but it's a fraction of the creators that you work with as an editor. I can't imagine an artist, like you're working maybe with one writer and one editor and all that other stuff, because that's taking up all your time. It would make me a little bit sad. I mean, like I said, I love art, I love artists, but I do like working with a lot of people as well.
So
do you have any experience? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask, like, given that you were an editor, do you have as a writer, do you have an appreciation for their task? So you don't kind of become the problem child that you have seen? Is that like, is that kind of comes into play?
Yeah, yes and no. And I hope all the editors are sticking their finger that I work with are sticking their fingers in their ears, because and artists are this way too. I'm going to give up all the secrets. It's like, everyone's busy and it's very hard and everyone's does stuff. But I say, I know when they're like, oh, it's not so busy, they just didn't do it. You know what I mean? And I know that, and it gets you in trouble, right? Because I know kind of, I have 2 deadlines. I really know this one, even though editor A is telling me that this deadline is then, I know I got a few more days, and I get myself in trouble doing that. You know what I mean? So in a way, I try to get away with more, which I really should never do, and I don't advise it. That being said, I also very much appreciate not just how hard they are, but it is so important. The most important person to a book in a lot of ways is the editor, who's going to be sitting in the office taking care of everything. Because like I said, with Sweet Tooth, one of the things I'm most proud of working on that book isn't that we got Jeff and we had some story notes and we did all that other stuff. It was that I was able to get everybody excited about it. The other editors, the people in marketing, the people even in production, when they say, oh, that goofy book, we all love it. And because everyone in the office liked it, it got a little more love whenever it came to somebody. So when it came to advertising, they remembered Sweet Tooth a little bit more and doing everything else. So the editor is kind of the advocate in the office for all the books. And that's one of the things that's incredibly important, as well as traffic management and getting everybody paid and keeping everybody cool.
Sorry, Maddie, I interrupted you.
No, it honestly led to the question that I wanted, so that's fine. So heading back more into the writing realm of this, can you kind of tell us more about your process with writing now? Like, what's, going from editor, which is kind of more like a very much like almost administrative way, like taking care and picking all these pieces, to more like singular path, right? What's your creative process with this? What's your kind of day-to-day with your writing process? What are your steps going into the book?
Yeah, so I learned just to, not to focus on editing, but a lot of that was just being able to read a lot of scripts from all different kinds of people was like really informative and really influential. And I don't tell the same kinds of stories But the way I kind of approach a script is very much Grant Morrison and it's very much Frank Miller. And I worked with a lot of other writers who worked differently, but just happened to be that was something that almost demystified it. And it's just about the art direction and how much you're putting on the page and trying to keep things visually interesting. That's visually interesting from Frank and kind of emphasizing stuff and how you communicate with the artist from Frank Miller, and from Grant Morrison, kind of how to structure things and making sure that my kind of vision goes through with it. But that being said, day to day, yeah, it's like I mean, writing is, like I said, I'm old enough that it was kind of hard to figure out, but if you were motivated, you could figure it out. Like there weren't like scripts online or stuff that you could find. It was a couple years before all that when I first got interested in it. But you know, I kind of came into the business as it was easy to get access to that type of stuff. And I don't think my process is very different than anybody else. You know, you kind of you know, some days when you're actually just writing, you're sitting there and you're writing a script. I don't know if I can articulate it any better than that. You kind of first thing to make it just kind of easy, you know, you have your idea, you have your plot. I break down it depends on the book you're working on, right? Because I'm doing some more longer form original graphic novel stuff. But a book like Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, you know, you're working with 20 pages. You know, you have to kind of begin and end, but also be a part of the thing. So I'll do an outline that's not necessarily page by page, but scene by scene, and ideally that will be for the entire arc. So if it's 5 issues, I have all of that done ahead of time. Prior to that, I'm talking with Chris Robinson, the editor, and my collaborators, whether it's usually Natasha or there's also Ray Height, and I'm working with Aletha Martinez now coming up. You know, what's going to be cool is, and it's going to be great, you kind of get the beats down, and then I try to break it down, and then I'm just writing full script. I'm sure everyone knows the difference, right? It's not just a plot and the artist takes it. It's art direction. You're telling people what to do and breaking it down. And I kind of write, and it's probably not the best thing to do, but I don't think I'll ever change at this point, which is I don't write in order. I do scenes and go back and forth, but I don't do like a full draft and then read it and then a full draft. I'll do a pass like after I'm all done to make sure it's great. But I kind of edit while I write, which really slows you down. And like, oh, I should go, and oh, I got to switch this, and oh, this issue I got to make a note and do back and everything else. So it gets to be a bit of a crunch, and there's no advantage to it. But that's you know, unfortunately how it works for me, right? And that's why last issues of arcs are really tough for me. It's like, oh man, I got to make sure I pull it all together because it all fit in the outline. But you change stuff as you're writing it, and you change the emphasis. Mm-hmm. But yeah, and I like to collaborate as much as I can with the artist, and maybe that was the editor in me also. So I do like seeing layouts from the artist. I do like being in the loop when the colorist is doing proofs and everything else. But I also very much respect everyone's job. So a lot of artists are sometimes gun shy about giving layouts. You know what I mean? Like roughs, this is how we're going to set up the page, because they don't want the notes. They don't want people changing stuff. So I try to just look at it and kind of give feedback that's like thumbs up. And you know, you have to be cool because it's so hard to make comics and so hard to draw. It's the hardest thing to do. So you just try to be positive. If someone's doing something, I rarely ever have like a correction, you know what I mean, or stuff like that. It's like life's too short, and there's another issue in 30 days. You know what I mean? So it's like, hey, next time let's not get into the same mess. And I certainly make a lot of mistakes, and I don't get a lot of edits, and I don't think it's because I'm good or any better than anybody else, but it's always just kind of like a back and forth and everything. So you want to change, I make a quick change. I want to do something, I do it. But you know, it's kind of hectic, and then another part of the day is you know, lining up new stories, whether it's the next story in Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, or if it's the next series that you're going to pitch. I do a lot of work with, and it's a totally different animal, but if you do stuff with a little bit with gaming, a little bit I did with VR, virtual reality scripting last year. I teach a class. My wife's a professor at NYU. She's a chemical engineer. But NYU also in the engineering school has a video game design program, or whatever you call it. And so I don't really teach comics. That would be too much pressure, but I teach people who want to make video games how to do storytelling. So I do kind of a storytelling class.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. It used to be like I used to only make them read comics, and now I kind of mix in a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Matt is our resident video game expert, so she
I do my best.
Yeah, I'm not. I mean, if I was, I could probably get more into that, and I would like it more, and I would do more, and it would be an interesting thing to explore. But there's all that setting up, and really, I think now, which is maybe the only interesting thing I'm going to say to answer this question, which I've spent so long on, is I think the comics business in 2019, and it's going to be this way for another couple of years at least. Everybody also has to wear the publisher hat, and it's usually writers. Sometimes artists they just don't have the desire or the connection to do it. But there's even when you work for Marvel or DC, you have to figure out how we're going to make this book work. Sales is a big component of that, and if you're working for Marvel and DC, it's not your job to think about sales. But it's like, are we going to get enough people eyeballs on it? Is the artist going to be happy and be able to do it? Are we going to be able to make it all put it together? And it's not just an issue, and can we get there fast enough? Everyone's worried about books being canceled, right? You get 6 issues, so you have to think about hitting the ground running, right? You can't just think of what's the best story, how am I going to let it roll out? You really have to think, are people going to be there? And then you want it to fit nice and put it together. So like I said, it's less at Marvel and DC, but even there, you have to put on a publisher's hat. And so I'm always thinking of, well, okay, even I got a book coming out called Secret Book Club. I know you guys said that before we went on. But that's with Penguin Random House, which I think is Penguin Random House is one big giant company. It's either the biggest or second biggest publishing house in the world. And they have a huge marketing department. They have everything else. And but still, I'm doing that with Erica Henderson. So even before that, it's like, well, how do I get that gig at Penguin? And then how do I get them to kind of think of me the way I want them to think of me? Because I'm not, I don't have the same market as Noelle Stevenson or someone huge, obviously like Raina. But like, hey, appreciate stuff that, hey, Marvel does something that they don't have. So be something that they don't usually have access to, that kind of storytelling, which is a little more sophisticated and a little more detailed. Not that it's better, just that you can flip through a lot of books and they kind of all look the same if they're from Scholastic. At least Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur looks different. At least Squirrel Girl looks different. So we can kind of bring that and appeal to them that way so the book kind of works. And then make sure that you get a good enough deal to make it worthwhile to get a great artist. And we got a great artist. And then make it work that Erica and I share copyright in it, so we own it together and all that stuff, which I find really interesting. But I don't think, unless you're like a Marvel or DC exclusive, you're going to have to do that, or it's going to hurt you, and it's going to hurt your book, and your book's not going to happen. So a lot of that kind of planning is also in there. And I like doing that stuff. That goes back to owning the store, right? And just trying to keep the lights on and open it up and then really take off and have a success. But yeah, it's like, you can't just say, oh, I'm going to write a script and I'm going to give it to somebody and I'm done. I don't think, some people can, obviously, and some people do even when they shouldn't, but it's just, it's not how the business is really set up anymore. And you even have to go on Twitter. You have to talk about it. You have to promote it. You have to promote yourself. That's a big part of being, I think, any kind of creator now, which it wasn't 10 years ago. I wasn't a creator 10 years ago, but so that's something I kind of had to, when I broke in, it's like, hey, it's not the same thing. You're not just getting a check and an assignment. You really have to hustle. Marvel and DC, if nothing else, they want you on Twitter talking about your book. They don't want you talking about other stuff that's crazy, but they want you talking about the book for sure.
So honestly, you pretty much just answered a question that we were going to ask you that wasn't on our list.
Oh,
because before this, we talk a lot about, well, it's not of us theorizing because we're not in the business, right? About, which books make it and which don't. And is that due to sales of issues, or is it due to sales of, trades or something? Because there's a lot of series in Marvel with female-led characters that don't make it.
Marvel.
Right.
That don't make it. And then, there's a lucky few. We've got Squirrel, we got Moon Girl, we've got Miss Marvel. And then we don't know what the magic is behind that, but it's nice to see or learn a little bit more about what on your side, kind of what the thought process in there and how you plan that and how you kind of anticipate how you can affect those sales on your end.
Yeah. Well, when you're working for Marvel and DC, especially, it's always a mystery. It's still a mystery, and you called it luck. Luck is a part of it. You can definitely anticipate that stuff, but at Marvel and at DC, it's somebody else's job also. And if you get too into that, then you're stepping on someone's toes, and then you're a pain in the ass. And you don't want to go there. But you know, this I could be as befuddled as you guys. That doesn't make any sense. The only reason maybe I'm a little less befuddled is because I realize it doesn't make sense, and sometimes it's just luck. It's, you know, I don't have. I'm not telling tales out of school to say it's really strange. I mean, we make comics the same way that we made them 30 years ago, you know, and we basically market them and sell them the same way 30 years ago, and we have these exploding channels, right? Whether it's original graphic novels or movies, and now it's been almost 20 years. Every Marvel's had a #1 box office at some point in the summer in the year for almost 20 years now. And it doesn't change that we still put out a book monthly. I mean, it's like I said, the Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, I don't think that you won't find a book that sells less in single issues, but we still make single issues, right? And I love it, and I grew up on it, and it's cool, and we get to do a letter column and stuff like that. But if everybody's reading Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, you ask yourself the question, if everyone's reading it as a collected edition, why are we even doing it monthly? So we have to hit those deadlines and maybe use a fill-in artist, because that's going to hurt the collected edition, right? Because nobody, if you're buying it as a collected edition, why do you need, and like I said, we've never had a book with an inker. Well, that's not true. We've had a couple, but where you need inking help, right? Or to get anything together. It's kind of a mystery. But on the other side, with Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, you know, Marvel's given us 4 years worth of books so far, and it's unbelievable. And they for a good amount of time, it was a leap of faith with them. They're saying, hey, you know, we don't know if this is going to do well, but we're going to not stop it. We're going to wait and see if, you know, sales catch up to it. And it wasn't because they like me personally, and it wasn't because of we were better than, and I don't want to even compare it to another book that happened to get canceled. But, you know, I know an inside for Moon Girl, that was it. I'm pretty sure for Squirrel Girl and Ms. Marvel was also, where they said, listen, we're going to keep doing, we're going to keep putting it out. It doesn't fit where it's a square, you know, we make square pegs, and this is a, you know, a round peg for a square hole. But to their credit, they do it, and they stuck with it. They were, you know, they got it into Scholastic at the book fairs with kids, which was big for us, and it was big for Squirrel Girl. You know, it just, you know, it really is a mystery. There's no, you know, if someone asked me to run comics, I guess I would change the world. But everyone wants everything to be a success, so they're not. So the fact that you kind of default to this monthly thing, it's just because I think, you know, it's familiarity. It's also deadlines. It's also, we know how this makes money and it doesn't, and it's also the support system of the retailer. It's also how we all grew up. It's very difficult to change things in comics, you know, it's probably made us meaning the business, resilient, but it's also probably sacrificed a lot of opportunities for kind of explosive growth, I think. But you know, at the end of the day, everyone's trying to make the comics happen. So
you brought up one important word that I actually recently found out about it: Scholastic. How is their relationship with Marvel Comics? Because I hear that they're the one who's publishing Moon Girl, Miss Marvel, and Squirrel Girl, and it was mentioned in some articles, I don't know the truth to that's what keeping those titles afloat. Yeah,
well, Scholastic, so I'm just sometimes cautious, because it's like, you know, I don't want to speak on behalf of Marvel. But Scholastic is a publisher. They do books. They do the Raina Telgemeier's books. They do Bone. They do a whole slew of things. They do Dogman. They do huge sellers, mostly in the kids market. So they're a publisher. Now they're also do the Scholastic book fairs, and I used to have them at my fingertips. But I mean, it's so much bigger than the direct market. It's so much bigger than libraries. It's so much bigger than bookstores, right? As far as the unique customers they have and that they spend money, and people who have kids are probably familiar. That's like they go to the school and they set it up, and they're all the books, and the kids can buy it. So they also,
that's my favorite.
Yeah. So they also act in like, it's like not a distributor, but like a retailer almost. And so they for Moon Girl and for Squirrel Girl. And I don't think Ms. Marvel, people always give a whole list of all these books, like, and like I said, oh, it sells in Scholastic. As far as I know, the only two they ever did was Squirrel Girl and Moon Girl. And they do their own edition. So they actually print a Scholastic edition of Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur. It's a little smaller. It's on different paper stock. It's only $8.99. Which is about half the price of a regular trade paperback. Marvel just did a more kind of Scholastic edition of it. So I'm gonna go off on too many tangents. So Scholastic makes their own copy. They print 100,000 of them. It's huge numbers. They sell them through the store. It's a much bigger discount because the stores, not the stores, the schools get a big percentage of all the sales also, because it helps the budgets for the school to have these book fairs. So it's a totally different animal. It doesn't have the same margins. It's a much less money per issue. Kind of comes back to the publisher, but it's huge numbers, and it's more about market penetration and getting into that market. And Marvel has no control over what Scholastic publishes. Scholastic chooses what Scholastic wants to publish. And they, this is, like I said, this is going back 4 and now almost 5 years ago when it was in the planning stage. Marvel said, hey, we have this kind of, and I didn't even know what Scholastic was at the time, how big a deal. But it said Scholastic kind of wants a book. They want it to be in continuity, right? Because Marvel and DC, they've always done kids editions of stuff. But for some reason, this kind of idea was developing between Marvel and Scholastic to do an all ages book that is still in continuity. And they thought Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur would be great. Back then, it was just Devil Dinosaur. I tell the story. And then it became Devil Dinosaur and Moon Girl, and then Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur. And Squirrel Girl was already coming out, but Moon Girl was going to be kind of this test for Scholastic. And then I think that was kind of those conversations, I'm just guessing mostly, between Marvel and Scholastic was going so well. They said, hey, what about Squirrel Girl? And they put Squirrel Girl in. So Squirrel Girl and Moon Girl, I think to this day, are the only two that Scholastic did their own editions of. Now, you can buy all kinds of books at Scholastic that get distributed, like the regular edition of it. But like I said, an actual Scholastic printed Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur and Squirrel Girl, I think are the ones. I don't think Ms. Marvel was ever one of the books. And it's not because Ms. Marvel isn't great. There would be no Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur without Ms. Marvel. That definitely went into the calculus. And sometimes they said, hey, you know, you want this to work, try to make something kind of like Moon Girl. And, you know, Amy and I and Natasha Bustos, Amy Reeder, who I co-wrote it with, and she was doing the early covers. Natasha Bustos, the interior artist, we get creator credit, the three of us combined on Moon Girl. Yeah, we really wanted to kind of make it cool and kind of get it out there and put it, you know, into the world and hope that it would work. And, you know, I don't know. I'm losing track of my own story, so I don't.
No, just like there's been recently started doing this Scholastic version of Ms. Marvel. That's why I brought it up.
So maybe maybe there's new one. I'm sure.
Like, because they duped me into thinking, because I collect every single Ms. Marvel stuff.
No. See, but I don't want to. I'm gonna get myself in trouble with Marvel. You're talking about the new one that collects the first 2 trades and is a little smaller.
Yeah.
See, that's not Scholastic. That's Marvel. That's Marvel's new format that happens to look a lot like Scholastic's format. They did it with the Moon Girl also. So that is, and you can goof on them. I do it with love because Ms. Marvel is such a huge hit, and Moon Girl's all due to Marvel's believing in the book. But that is Marvel seeing that Scholastic did a good thing and said, oh, let's see if we can kind of do the same without, you know, having to only be limited to the Scholastic market. So that book you can buy on Amazon and all the other places. It's called In the Beginning for Moon Girl, and that comprises the first 2 trade paperbacks.
Oh, okay. Into it because I ordered it and I got it. Then I'm like, what the hell? This is the same one. Already having the 4 different versions. Yeah.
Well, like I said, I'm sure you can find a lot of people who would love to have that book, and they're only like $13 for 12 issues.
Yeah,
mine's 12. I think Ms. Marvel might have 5-issue arcs. I'm not sure, but
so going back to Moon Girl, I think you kind of already started talking about it. So how did the idea kind of came about? Like, you know, because Devil Dinosaur already existed. He is a Jack Kirby creation. I don't think he was being used by anywhere. So
no. Yeah, Jack Kirby only got 9 issues out of it, so we've left Jack Kirby 5 times.
Right.
But, yeah, so I did a book called Rocket Girl with Amy Reeder at Image. And the way a lot of these things happen, an editor at Marvel said, you know, we'd like you guys to do what you do at Rocket Girl at Marvel. So we said, okay, let's talk. You know, breaking into comics, which I'm sure you have a lot of you know, watchers, listeners, YouTube fans who are interested in it. Something I often have to tell people: it's not going to be based on your pitch. You're not going to say, "I have a great idea for Hawkman," and then you're going to pitch it to an editor, and then Hawkman's going to be your first gig, because Hawkman, maybe they think it doesn't sell, maybe somebody's thinking of Hawkman and it's going to come out later, maybe they don't want to do it, maybe the last series did so bad you don't. Your first gig is going to be, you know, I have this opening and I want you to pitch for it. So it wasn't quite that, because Amy and I were established, but it was, come by to Marvel. We really like what you want to do. Let's talk about what characters are available and see if there's a good fit. So we met, and we were supposed to talk. You know, it was supposed to be a long meeting where we kind of went through it all. Amy and I had both wanted it to be a more obscure character, because there's just you don't have to tie in as much to continuity, and you can do more stuff, and you know, a little less of a headache in some way, and the risk you take is maybe the sales aren't going to be there. So the first thing that got mentioned was Devil Dinosaur. I was excited. So, oh, that's so cool. And Amy couldn't care less. She had no interest in Devil Dinosaur. But it was Mark Panicha, and maybe he had this in his back pocket, but he kind of said, well, and Moon Boy was a supporting character in the old 70s Jack Kirby Devil Dinosaur book. So we said, yeah, well, you could do Moon Girl, and we don't want, and the old Devil Dinosaur took place in Dinosaur World, and there were cavemen and dinosaurs fighting each other and eating each other all day long. So the idea was, okay, we'll have a new character, a little kid, and bring Devil Dinosaur into modern times, because they did want it to be in kind of continuity and interacting with the Marvel universe. So yeah, and that's kind of a real traditional way that got put together. I had worked with Natasha Bustos on a short story at Vertigo that I wrote for Strange Sports Stories. She was a sumo wrestling story. And, you know, so I kind of put her on Marvel's radar, and she wound up getting the gig. And, you know, the rest is history. You know, we got, you know, 6 issues, and you figure there's a very good chance that 6 is all you're going to get. We launched with All New, I think the second All New, All Different, or Marvel Now, the first one, or something like that, right? So you could tell there were a lot of sister books in that launch, and I don't know if any of them survived, to be honest. You know, we're one of the highest numbered books that Marvel's putting out, right? Because they never renumbered us. So yeah, so we kind of knew that it was that they wanted to kind of commit to it and get enough out there so that we're going to get 12 issues. And then we said, wow, if we can get to 18, even if they don't cancel us, even though they said we're going to get to 12, maybe we get to 18, it's going to be great. And we're just very lucky. You know, as much as it started with me and Amy Reeder, both of us agree. I don't want to talk for Amy, but you know, Natasha is such a big part of it. There's so much of Natasha in Moon Girl, and you know. But some of that's luck too, because Amy designed the character originally. She kind of had the idea of that character floating around in her head as somebody older, but made her a little kid. And yeah, it was just going to be fun, and we're going to talk about the stuff. I probably did most of the breakdown for kind of like the plot and whatnot, but you know, all the kind of things that you love about her was really from all 3 of us. So it's, you know, her personality, her kind of the situation. It's funny because a lot of people who have dogs say, "Oh, it's like they love it." I don't have a dog. I kind of hate dogs. So to me, it's always a stretch to get people in. I'm always so happy with myself because people think I like dogs, because he is just a big goofy dog. But I say, "Oh, I understand why people like him," so I'll put that in the book. But yeah, and you know, Lunella Lafayette, so we gave her that alliterative Marvel name. Wanted to make her a scientist because Peter Parker's a scientist, and Bruce Banner's a scientist, and Tony Stark's a scientist, and Reed Richards and everybody else. So we said, I really had a desire to make her a Marvel character, right? Because I had done Rocket Girl, I didn't need to say, okay, this is the kind of story I want to tell, and I'm going to shoehorn it into Marvel. I really wanted her to interact with all the Marvel characters. I really wanted her to feel like a Marvel creation. Because otherwise, why do it? You know what I mean? I would just do another Rocket Girl book. So yeah, and like I said, you know, Marvel definitely stuck with it to see how it was going to shake out. And obviously, it did well with Scholastic. She showed up in a bunch of video games. The cartoons announced. I never know if it's coming out or not. It's kind of one of those things where it gets hot and it gets cold, and I don't have any news on it. But you know, enough that you know, I always say, and I credit Mark Panicia, who's the senior editor, even though Chris Robinson's the day-to-day editor, that hey, they gave us Devil Dinosaur, right? And they meaning the powers that be, the Marvel, you know. But we gave them Moon Girl and 4 years of issues and all the video games she's appearing in and all the press about you know, the potential of a cartoon coming out, all the cosplayers who play it, and it's a lot, and I feel good. And you know, there was a big Alex Ross poster for something where it had all the Marvel characters, and there's Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, big Devil Dinosaur with a little girl on the back. And I said, hey, I had a poster, not Alex Ross, but I had the big Marvel Universe poster in my room. And it's like, I got, that was always my goal, was to have someone who'd be an important part of the Marvel Universe. And you know, mission accomplished. And that's why some people get possessive about their characters. It's like, hey, if another writer wants to put Moon Girl in it, go for it. And they do something a little goofy or that I wouldn't do, I don't care, because the whole point is, again, if she is going to be like Spider-Man or like even, you know, whomever else, she's going to have 30 people writing her. So it's sometimes hard to let go, but you can say, oh, you know, I'm glad people picking her up and doing stuff with her.
Jeremy Whiteley did a very good portrayal of her in Unstoppable Wasp, where she just tells Nadia, like, I don't have time for this.
Yeah, I know. Like I said, I hope that stuff's preserved, because I like the character a lot, but she's like not nice all the time. She's a bit of a brat. No. Spirited. It's that she doesn't always know the right thing to say in any given.
No. Hang on. Yeah. She's perfect.
I mean, you know.
We need that kind of character, because I always talk about this. Ladies are not portrayed rude often. And then for a 9-year-old black girl to be that rude and owning it, my invisible hats off to you, sir.
Well, like I said, I appreciate that, and I don't want to dodge such a nice compliment. But no, I mean, to me, it's just like, it's an interesting character, right? I think I don't know that it's my story to tell what it means to be a 9-year-old black girl in the Marvel universe. You know what I mean? But I'm doing it every month, and I'm working with a lot of people. A lot of people have a lot of input. You know, none more than Natasha. But yeah, you know, it's those things. I'm glad it's important to people. I definitely take that seriously. But it's again, it's like, you know, it just. I almost feel guilty about saying this, you know, but obviously I'm not too guilty because I'm saying it. But it's like, no, it's just to me, it's makes somebody interesting, and then people are going to relate to them, because, you know, like I said, who's perfect, and not even that you have to make them crummy. You can make them totally perfect. I think All-Star Superman was, hey, it's a guy who can do anything and he's going to save the world, and no matter what you think, he's not going to be worried and crying and saying, Lois, please, I don't know what to do. I could have saved more people. It's kind
you clearly have not seen Man of Steel. Or...
Well, I was going to say the antithesis of what you saw in the Zack Snyder movies, right? And I said, that's somebody being perfect, and it's such a great and such a compelling story, because we aspire to that. And sometimes if we're lucky and we're generous, we are that to other people in the community or in our family or our friends. So all that stuff works, and it can all be interesting. But for me, it's an interesting character, and different writers do approach it where they're trying to insert maybe something they believe in, or be a little bit more didactic. And maybe it's because I am so privileged I don't have to do that. But I really just say, hey, you know, it's a good story, and I don't agree with everything my characters say, and I don't always think that they're cool. But I know how to write somebody compelling. You gotta make them have good enemies, right? And there's no better enemy than yourself as far as writing, I think. And she's her own worst enemy, right?
She is.
Yeah. So
she's so rude. And I'm like, I love her.
Well, like, at Tokyo Pop, I worked on, like I said, mostly original stuff, which was cool. But you know, it was a small company, and you could get extra kind of pay if you did the translation yourself. And sometimes all hands on deck, and you're working with stuff. And some of that those manga, which I don't want to say, I'm blanking on the, Madelyn would know, I'm blanking on the genre term, right? I don't want to say girls manga, but that's literally
shoujo.
It's all about like, oh, you know, it's these great, I'm gonna ruin it, but it's these great comedy of errors, right? Where it's like, oh, this person saw me do something and now he hates me and I can't speak to him. And like, there's such great tension. There's such good stuff there where people are just so foolish that, and they're, like I said, if they just kind of calm down, it would all be all right. But it was such good storytelling. It was Marmalade Boy was this book.
Oh, I love Marmalade Boy.
Well, it's funny because I had to read out an issue, meaning I just was like doing like a last minute proof on it. You know, and I said, oh, this is so good. So I got back at it. It's an 8 volumes, something like that. It's like, this is so well crafted from a storytelling point. And all it is her thinking something bad happened when it really didn't. And then so refusing to, like, you know, pursue the boy that you want to date or something else like that. I don't know if I'm getting it kind of right, Madelyn.
Mm-hmm.
But it was just so well done. It was so well crafted. It was so compelling that I think about that stuff when I'm writing stories that, you know, 9-year-olds are going to be reading. And I have a 9-year-old daughter now. She was, you know, only 5, or I guess if that's the math holds up, when Moon Girl came out. She just happens to be Moon Girl's age now. But I'm glad I'm working on that stuff. I'm really happy that I can get her and her friends and people like her.
No, so over the weekend I was obsessing over Moon Girl, so I kind of went and read all 41 issues that are out there.
Very good.
And then one of the things that I have actually noticed about her, like, she's just unapologetically intelligent. Right. Like, she doesn't say sorry for which is something that you don't see girls do. Like, you know, girls would be shy, or they wouldn't be, you know, would be like, and she's like, no, I don't have time for this foolishness. Yeah. Like, she's like yelling at Hulk, yelling at, like, you know, yelling at like Stark, yelling all the time.
Yeah, but I mean, it's fun. It's something that's just like, that's a way to comedy, I think. And like I said, I said, you know, you read it. I don't want to ruin it by explaining kind of how I take it. But I think a lot of that, she does that. Is she really that confident, or is that kind of her way of you know, hiding any kind of insecurity she has, right?
Oh, so, no, it's absolutely insecurity. I can tell, because I was Moon Girl. I was Lunella once.
Yeah, well, I guess, you know, she's the smartest person in the Marvel universe, right?
Yeah, like, the smartest person I knew.
That was something that came up. Like I said, we kind of got that escape velocity after issue 12, and it's okay. What'd be like really big idea? And I had the idea, and I had to pitch the powers that be at Marvel. I said, well, Reed Richards is the smartest person, but Reed Richards has the Fantastic Four. He can stretch. He's got the Thing and the Human Torch and Invisible Woman to play off of. He's got all the villains. He's got all this history. It's like that he's the smartest guy in the world is like the 7th most interesting thing about Reed Richards. So why don't we have it be Moon Girl? Of course, that's self-interested, right? But it was a way to kind of put a spin on and do something else. So that wasn't initially in the character. She was just kind of like the random genius that Black Panther and Spider-Man and everybody seems to be in the Marvel universe. Yeah, so I'm really happy, and I wouldn't have thought of the idea if it wasn't for Greg Pak, who had Amadeus Cho as the 8th most, or I think he was the 7th at the time, right? Oh, I'm the 7th smartest person in the world, which really begs the list, right? So he got demoted. But like I said, so Moon Girl, and like I said, I don't want to say, oh, I'm a genius, look how I wrote it. But it was very conscious that he said, they're arguing, right? And you probably remember the scene.
Yeah.
He tries to lay down the authority. He's like, hey, don't talk back to me. I'm the 7th smartest person. And of course she talks back and everything else. But one of the things that was important for her to say structurally, story structurally, was, oh, I don't even care. Who cares 7th? That doesn't mean anything. That you can't test how smart you are. But then as soon as she's number 1 and it's the Hulk telling her he's number 1, it's the most important thing in the world.
Like, yeah, exactly. You know, that's when she started saying it to everyone.
Yeah, exactly. Well, because she had been rejected her whole life. You know, she didn't get into the school. She didn't get, you know, no one kind of recognized her. They passed her by. You know, they're talking about, they always want to put her in the Future Foundation or in Champions or doing something like this. I said, you know, again, if other writers got a good take and that's what it wants to be, I will learn to embrace that type of stuff. But for me, it's like, yeah, so what is this kid doing in a regular school? She's so much smarter. I've had a couple of teachers say something, and I'm always nervous because I try to go to a lot of schools because, like, no, the teachers really aren't as smart as her. And they're really not helping her situation. And like I said, that, you know, I like to think Miss Dominguez and everybody else, they're good natured, but they're also kind of like holding her back and really, like I said, not good for her. And I always worry that a teacher, if I'm reading it in a class, if they really read it too closely, they're gonna get mad at me because, of course, in the real world, teachers are very important. I don't mean to at all disparage them, but it's a much funnier story if they're kind of.
Oh yeah, like the way
Yeah.
the way she's always kind of saying that this is like the most like science test is the place to sleep. Like, you know,
Yeah,
that's what she has.
Well, I mean, you know, yeah. I always thought it begs the question, right? Like Spider-Man, you know, why does he always have to make the rent? You know what I mean? It's like, can't he, you know, can't he invent something? Can't he sell his web shooters and make enough money? And I remember the Black Canary relaunch recently. She had to, like, you know, her base got destroyed. So the conceit was, I'm going to go on the road as a rock star and make the money so I can rebuild the base. Well, can't you just go to Batman, who's a billionaire, and say, you know, my whole headquarters got destroyed, and it's much more important that I fight crime than raise money to rebuild this. So just give me the money. Or there was like a Firestorm relaunch where it was a kid, and it was, well, why does he have to worry about his after-school job? He should just turn a brick into a brick of gold, and then he can focus on the important things, right? But then I hear them with like, yeah, in other words, like, well, there's no way she would really be in that school. She doesn't even have to be in school. But if you're a 9-year-old, you can't really control her, right? Your parents drop you off. She still does it, even though she'll disobey and go, you know, fight aliens at one point. She's also kind of just stuck in school. And what else is she going to do? What is she going to leave? She doesn't get to choose where she goes. So she doesn't get to do the curriculum and everything else. So I like that. I like that tension of, you know, so absurd. And to me, it plays off of like, yeah, exactly. If you're a superhero, shouldn't you just be a superhero all day long if it was in the real world? But it's not the real world, so you can do all kinds of stuff.
But I do kind of like the idea, though, that no one bothers her, that she's just walking around with a dinosaur, and then no one gets upset. Everyone's just taking selfies all the time.
Yeah.
It's just a running gag.
Yeah. And a lot of that is 100% Natasha, where she'll, like I said, you know, she'll art the page, she'll set it up and say, oh, all right, I'm gonna have someone leaning out the window taking a picture. Yeah.
So we're getting close to time, but I want to make sure that we don't end this without talking about what projects you have coming up.
Mm-hmm.
So I know you have Secret Book Club coming up with Erica Henderson.
Correct.
Tell us more about that and like whatever else maybe you've got cooking.
Yeah, well, Secret Book Club with Erica Henderson is going to be a series of graphic novels, all ages, and again, you know, which I kind of take pride in all ages being really all ages that anybody could read. So if you read Moon Girl, you really should like it. The same as Bugs Bunny, same as The Simpsons, right? It should work on kind of every level. But it's not coming out probably until like the end of 2020 or early 2020, okay, because it's just because it's a lot of pages, and the book market takes almost a year to sell stuff through, just the way they solicit and sell it and everything else like that. So I'm kind of from, you know, what I know about publicity is all learned in comics, where it's like, well, don't announce it if it's a year and a half away. But they said, no, it's an acquisition, and you want to announce it to people that are working on it, and that's kind of how they do it in the book market. So there's not a whole lot to say, except that it is about it's about a girl, and I'm going to defend myself saying, you know, I would very much like to do Wolverine and Punisher shooting each other and slashing each other in a sewer, that type of story. But I've worked with a lot of female artists, so that's why there's Rocket Girl and Moon Girl and now Secret Book Club and everything else. But she is she has to spend the summer with part of her family that she never really met before, who are related to this kind of Stan Lee character, who created all these comics that are very famous in the world, right? So it's basically a P.T. Barnum, Stan Lee type. Was her grandfather, who she never met, but that he created all these stories, and she doesn't like comic books, and these family that she has to visit are all weirdos. But it's a coming of age story, and she's an artist, and she likes to draw and do stuff. And there is a bit of an adventure as to, there's a thought that these are missing, they're missing pages, and that if she could find them, and she falls in with a bunch of comic collectors who love that type of stuff. So she becomes, even though she's kind of shy and never really thought much of, wasn't too into her kind of legacy of that stuff, that you know, it's a chance for her to be popular and important and everything else. But then but you know, a lot of back and forth. Is that really cool, or is it better to be your own person? And she kind of coming into her own. So I just really horribly sold it. I gotta practice that because it's so far.
No.
I didn't.
I think it sounds great.
What they call an elevator pitch, right? But no, it's gonna be. If you like anything I do, it's gonna be great. And how can you not like Erica Henderson? So it's gonna be amazing, and I think it's gonna be a huge success because you know, like I said, we've both had success in that kind of realm. So it's gonna be really cool, and I think that's part of the future. Or one of the futures of comics is kind of moving into that, scholastics and libraries and books and bookstores and Amazon. I really am happy to be doing that kind of stuff because, and listen, I love direct market. I love Marvel, DC, superhero stuff. I grew up on that stuff. Been doing it since I was selling comics since I was 12, right? So somehow employed by Batman and Spider-Man and all those guys. But I also like doing new stuff too. So
when is it coming out?
There's no even release date yet, but like I said, it'll be the end of 2020 or early 2021, which is like on schedule. It's not like it's being put off or it's waiting. I think it just takes that long because it's going to be 3 books. I'm doing more with Natasha Bustos, who is, like I said, she's taking some time off. If you look at the upcoming solicitations for Moon Girl, because she just had her baby, her first baby. So yeah. Yeah, so when that kind of settles, I think we're going to do a project together that's creator owned. And I don't know, except the next time you have me back, I'll ask you guys. I'm doing a book called a space pirate book with an artist, Michael Shelfer, who's been the guy, kind of the alternate guy for David Baldione on Gail Simone's Domino. So we've been working on that for a while. I've known Shelfer for a long time. And that's going to be called Escape Velocity, but I'm not quite sure whether I should do it kind of traditionally through like an image or something like that, or save it for a graphic novel, because it's not like adult in a bad way, but it's not kid stuff. So it's like, oh, you know, is there really a market for not kid stuff, for adult stuff in the book market in Amazon and stuff like that? Or do you really supposed to do it through the direct market? I don't know, but look for that, and you should definitely follow Michael Shelfer because I like his art a lot.
And it looks like Moon Girl is going to be in War of the Realms.
Yeah, that's going to be cool. I had an idea for Thor for a one-shot because we had a filler coming up at the time. Because we usually do like we do 5-issue like kind of main stories now, which Natasha does, and then we get a break and then do another one. And I had an idea for Thor. I said, oh, I have this really great idea for Thor, where Thor, because he would be like the worst, not parent, but the worst guardian of anybody. So Thor is kind of trying to impress Sif, but has to solve a riddle, but he doesn't know how to do it. So he goes, oh, I'll get Moon Girl. So he's trying to convince Moon Girl to go back with him to Asgard to do this thing so he can impress Sif. And I really like the idea, and I really want to write Thor. It's kind of goofy, and I wanted to do all the Asgardians in Asgard. And I told the editor, and said, oh, think about it. And then like the next day, they announced War of the Realms. So I'm like, oh, man, they're never going to let me do it because I don't know what's going on. And usually not usually, but oftentimes when Marvel does something, or DC, or it's the same with any company, you know, if they're doing a big Thor event, you can't do your goofy Thor story. So I was like, oh, maybe I'll do it. Like, I'll have to wait another year to do it. But it turns out to be, it's kind of a crossover, but it takes place as a flashback. So there's a bookend that keeps it into War of the Realms, but it's really what happened the first time she met Thor. And it's, like I said, it's a flashback. So we we don't have to worry so much about all the goings on. But if you like Thor, and there definitely is, like I said, those bookends, and it's kind of in the spirit of War of the Realms. That's coming out. The next issue that's coming out is with Spider-Man,
right?
With Ray Height. Doing it, like I said, the reason we have so many artists is because, like I said, we're just kind of Natasha's on maternity leave, and that's going to be. I think that's the one that's out next time. And Ray's done, 2 issues, I think, before 3 issues. I should know, but no, that was his 3rd. So he's kind of the alternate artist on Moon Girl, and I like Ray a lot. And then you're going to get Aletha for a few issues. Aletha Martinez, who did Black Panther, the Wakanda one with the what are the bodyguards? The door. I'll
that Wakanda Forever.
Yeah. So she did the art for that, and she's going to be doing. And she also did one of the issues with the Fantastic Four in that arc. So she's going to be doing a bunch of issues. Aletha's local, so it's kind of cool to work with somebody hopefully, if you guys are in New York, not you guys, but you guys listening, anyone in New York, maybe we'll do more kind of like some appearances and stuff to promote that. I hope so. Signings. So that'd be cool.
I just want like whoever's the artist, like having the Doom head in like different weird locations.
Yeah. That's Natasha and shit. And that's part of the process. You could say, hey, put him here, but I don't. He just has to be someplace funny, right? So it's like, and I don't have to say where that is. And Natasha's setting up the whole page, so that's the type of thing where I usually say, yeah, Natasha, just Doomhead has to be there, and she knows that to do something goofy with it. All of the inventions, I mean, I don't think, I didn't suggest what they should be. So I think the only thing that's, the helicopter backpack is Inspector Gadget. That came from Amy, who's a big Inspector Gadget fan.
Nice.
But everything else, like, Natasha is like, okay, here's the action scene. You can use something we did in the past or make up something goofy. And so any of the gizmos, 100% Natasha. So, yeah.
That's good to know. That's good to know. So the next kind of like, since we are kind of heading towards the end over here,
sure.
Just kind of wanted to ask you, like, what are some of the advice would you give to people who are thinking about stepping into comic industry, either as a writer or artist, or like, because you have the whole job about being an editor. So right. In terms of new talent, what advice you would give?
Yeah, well, there's so much advice out there. So I'm trying to think of what people don't say a lot, right? Because if you're into it, you seek these things out, and kind of the basic information probably everyone always gives you. So what can we do? So something in general, I was talking about before about kind of you have to be a publisher, put that hat on. It's avoid people who say there's no money in comics, right? And I just probably get something. I'm probably starting a feud with somebody or beef. Maybe I shouldn't have said that, but I did, so I'll go with it. No, because there is money in comics, and you can make it work. And I think people who say, oh, there's not a lot of money in comics, they kind of fall into three categories. One is they kind of want to take advantage of you, which is bad, right? And that's not most, but that's definitely a part of it. The second is kind of people who don't know, and like I said, we're not like I'm a brilliant financier, but people who don't really know how to make money. I mean, they could be bankers and they wouldn't really know how to make it all work. And that's a part of it also. And the other part of it is, I think it's just kind of like a self-fulfilling negativity, right? A lot of people, certainly like, it's different now, but if you talk to an older than me kind of creators where they talk about, oh, the negativity of, we all hated ourselves so much that we hate being in comics and we're all embarrassed by it. I think that kind of got transformed into this whole thing where it's like, I'm not saying do it for the money or make money, the bottom line, but it's like, you need to be able to find a way to make things work. So don't be afraid of saying, hey, don't accept that I have to do it for free, or I have to do it for, just kind of, in the beginning you actually do, or you can, but you have to have a plan where it supports you, whatever that is, right? If you're living in your mom's basement, you're a lot easier. Your costs to support yourself are a lot less. If you got a couple of kids and you're still trying to break in, you say, well, you have to be realistic about the money you make. And that's not to be like, fuddy-duddy or an old man. It's just that it's really hard to make comics. And if you don't think of a way that they're going to be financially viable for you to make them and for your artist to draw them, and then for it to be worthwhile that you do more, it's really, you're not gonna have that kind of success. And like I said, I think everybody needs to be a bit of a self-publisher. And that being said, what is out there for you? Obviously, every comic gets options, right? If you have any kind of publisher, you're going to get that kind of interest. That might bring in some money. There's Kickstarter and crowdfunding. There's that kind of money. There's Patreon if you're a creator. There's that kind of money. It's not necessarily that you're going to be a millionaire tomorrow, but don't sell the business short. And that's not to protect the business. It's so you understand that it can be done, but it's also something that you have to be responsible for to kind of make it happen. So, and that wouldn't be like the first 10 things I'd say, but I've never heard anyone say that before. So that's what I'm throwing out there.
That's a very interesting one. I mean, but this is like the first time we ever heard about it.
Well, good. That was my mission. So, yeah. Or write a lot and draw from life. That's all true. It's all more true than what I just said. But
Maddie, do you want to ask next one?
I think it might be about time.
Yeah, she doesn't want to miss.
No. But I do want to say that I really enjoy this interview. So we have so many more questions to ask. Of course, we sent you too many, as we usually do.
No, I talk too much also, so that was a bad combination.
We would love to have you on again. Maybe next time you have a, right before Secret Book Club comes out or something else, maybe we can kind of get back together with you.
Look at that guy. I saw the dog. I like him.
Oh, that's my pug Moose.
Yeah.
He likes to be in the show also.
That's good. That's good.
But he just snorts and huffs. That's why I have to use this, so you don't just hear him.
Yeah, very good. I have to close the city, so I gotta close the window. I can't turn the air conditioner on, so I was like, oh, gotta keep myself cool in these things. But doesn't last long. Yeah, no, I would love to come back on. And there's always an issue of Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur or something coming out. So please invite me again, and I will answer the other probably 30 of the 36 questions you sent me.
Yeah.
And not that it's not that you sent too much, it's that I talk too much. So.
No. Yeah. So before, I think the last thing we can talk about before we go is what are you reading right now that you would like our listeners to pick up?
Yeah, it's again, I don't like thinking about it too much because then it's oh, these are my favorites, and then you forget something, or then you feel bad, or you got to defend it. But a lot of good stuff out there that I'm reading. It's I don't know how long it came out. You guys read My Boyfriend's a Bear? I think you did, and people hated it.
Kristan did. I also want to read it.
No, were you guys? Was there a dispute between all of you at some point? I'm trying to remember.
No, Kristan didn't like it.
Okay, that's
because of the weird animal person stuff. I still want to read it anyways, so I'm going to.
I did like it. There's a book, Infinite Dark, that's from Top Cow, and the second arc just started, and it's kind of like a sci-fi. I don't know if you guys ever saw the movie Event Horizon, but it's kind of like the heat death of the universe, and it's kind of this last life. What do you call it? Last holdout before the universe kind of collapses in on itself, and the only people left in this far future society. But then, as much as there's nothing else out there, there's something spooky out there, and I like that a lot. By Ryan Cady and Adrian Muti. I'll get it wrong. The guy who's done a bunch of books. I just read, because the trade came out, that Wrong Earth by Ahoy Comics. I thought that was a lot of fun. I was kind of surprised. You guys know Ahoy, they're that new company. Mm-hmm. I don't know why they started a new company and called it Ahoy, but I know Stuart Moore, who used to be a Vertigo editor, is there, and Tom Payer, and a lot of people started it. So they had single issues in the first trade just came out, which is, and they've been pretty cool, and it's nice to support something new. I just read Matt Rosenberg's Punisher. I like that. He did New Mutants. I like New Mutants a lot. Even it was weird. It was kind of bouncing all over the place. But if you read New Mutants, there's each chapter is just this kind of standalone horror story with superheroes injected into it. So I like that, both by Matt Rosenberg. So yeah, tons of good stuff out there.
Awesome. So you can go check out all of this news suggestion and all the books that we talked about at instocktrades.com, where you can get DC, Marvel, Boom, Image, Dark Horse, all for 42%, up to 42% off. There is currently a sale ongoing for if you write the code Avenge the Fallen, which I don't know what it refers to, but if you type that in, you get additional 3% off, and that sale ends tonight. So go and do all of that. Thank you so much for joining us, Brandon. Absolutely. I mean, you took the time off from your moving to talk to us.
Yeah, I'm moving between apartments and running around and do a lot of stuff. So
right. So the thing is, but we will definitely have you back, because I personally, is obsessed with Moon Girl now, and all the fantastic ones that, stories that are coming out that you talked about, the Secret Book Club and stuff. So we will have you back to answer the rest of our questions.
Sounds good.
All right. Thank you. Have a good night, everyone. So next week, we'll be back again at 7:30 p.m.
because to review Dr. Aphra
by Kieran Gillen.
Yeah.
So we have thoughts about that.
All right.
So anyway, thank you so much.
Well, there's a lot of books you don't like, so it's I can't get involved in that. I like that chapter actually, but there you go.
All right. Okay. Talk next week. Bye.
Okay. Be good.